Hello and welcome to the Digital Classroom. I'm Jamie Benedict here with more tools and techniques for the digital curriculum. This is January in the year 2021, and I have made a decision that I am no longer going to be putting a Band-Aid on the hybrid learning concept. For the last 9 months or so, I have been putting together tutorial videos talking about different strategies for this hybrid model. And while I don't think that we're over this by any stretch, and I know there's a lot more to go, at this point, I think it's time that we start to focus on the big picture of teaching and learning in a digital world. So I'm still going to do some tutorial videos and posting content like that to the YouTube channel as I find tools that are engaging, that are interactive, things that I think teachers can incorporate. But I want to make sure that what I'm posting at this point is something that is going to change the classroom environment. There's only so much technology that you can throw in for teachers. There's only so much you can do. And we've gotten to a point where we're very comfortable with certain technologies and we've got a system. And to try to keep changing that all the time, I think is too much. So if I find something that is outstanding, I will share that still. But for the most part, I want to start focusing on improving the future of education, helping teachers feel more comfortable incorporating technology into their classroom and the strategies that go along with that. For this episode, I want to talk about the 4 different learning modalities that we're seeing, and I want to get into the 5 misconceptions that I've identified that I think we see with digital instruction. Let's talk a little bit about these learning modalities. For a lot of teachers, especially going back to last year, when we go back to March, when everything changed, most schools went strictly remote learning. Remote learning means that you are in one place, the students are in different locations, but we've got live instruction going on. Most of the time you do that through some sort of web conferencing tool like Zoom or WebEx or Microsoft Teams, but you've got an instruction taking place, daily lessons still going forward, and we're still putting that interaction together, teacher and students. It's still face-to-face, it's just face-to-face remotely. So that's what remote learning looks like. Virtual learning has been around for a long time. And it's not going anywhere. We see virtual schools at every level, whether they be for colleges going strictly virtual, high schools have been virtual, tech schools have got some virtual concepts with them as well. But this is where teachers and students are in different locations. Mostly with this, it's either going to be pre-recorded lessons or a lot of self-directed learning opportunities. And that's one of the things that really makes this different than just straight remote learning. Remote learning is going to have teacher-led lessons. Virtual learning has a lot of self-directed or self-paced learning for students. Hybrid learning is what we have been seeing for a lot of schools for the start of this school year and moving forward, and probably until at least the end of this school year, if not into the start of next year when we start back to school in the fall. Hybrid learning has some face-to-face interaction with students, but also some remote learning with students. So you've got students in multiple locations, but you've got some in your classroom that you're trying to engage and some online in their homes that you're trying to engage. And you do live lessons. You're just trying to interact with both groups through, again, some sort of online teleconferencing platform. You're trying to engage both groups. This has been one that's been very frustrating for teachers, trying to interact in both settings. And students have had just as much frustration with this, partly because there's been very little training done to connect the two groups, right? And how do you engage both audiences? We've been used to having students right in front of us our entire teaching careers. Then to remember, oh yeah, I've got this group online. Okay, what do I need to do to make sure that they're paying attention? And so we're seeing some challenges there. I don't think that even after this pandemic is over, that we've seen the last of hybrid learning in some form. I think there's still going to be a platform for this. I still think there's opportunities for this. And I'm sure that there are some educators out there higher up, administration, at the district levels that are looking at this going, how can we incorporate this for the best of all of our kids and make sure that we're doing this correctly. So I don't know for sure. I just feel like there's opportunities that are coming along the way with more hybrid learning. And then the last modality, which is what most schools were starting to lean towards before all of this hit, and I think we're going to lean back there once all of this is done, is what we call blended learning. This is where we incorporate technology and traditional learning elements into one lesson. In this case, most students are face-to-face with us, right? That's going to be the platform. The students are going to be in the classroom. They're just going to have a computer in front of them while in the classroom. This started years ago with this BYOD movement, the bring your own device. It started out with just phones and trying to engage students by having their phone in their hand and how we can do that. And there were a lot of programs that were starting to be developed for the phone that would allow teachers to do this. And then schools started investing in iPads or other tablets, started buying laptops, and they started incorporating this. I think this is the future of education. Schools have already spent the money on developing the technology and getting it set up in their schools. Once this is over, they're not going to throw the technology out. They're not just going to scrap it all. They're going to make sure that teachers are using this for the best opportunities in education. And so that's where I think we're going to see a lot of opportunities for teachers. And for the most part, that's what I'm going to be focusing on with the digital classroom, is what happens when you have students all in your class and you've got 25, 30, 40 students in your classroom and you're trying to engage them with technology in front of them. And that's what I want to start to develop as we move forward in the digital classroom this year. So let's talk now then about the 5 misconceptions with digital instruction in general, whether it's remote or hybrid or blended learning, whatever it is. Misconception number 1, adding technology automatically increases learning. Absolutely not. This is a tool. If it's not used correctly, you can be doing more harm than good. It's important for schools to understand that and train their teachers. Here is what you should be doing. Here is how you can incorporate technology effectively. Because if they don't do that, this is going to lead to frustration and skepticism about its effectiveness. And this can be very effective. I'm a firm believer that technology can be incorporated into education very well. And I think a lot of teachers can be very successful with it. And I think a lot of students will be successful with it. But we've got to be smart about this. We need to find some sort of balance. The goal is to get students to retain our content. And one of the big complaints is that technology is leading to a lack of content retention. So how do we do that? Well, first, stop forcing them to just be on the computer. I know when my school, in particular, my school district went digital, they really wanted to push getting rid of the textbooks, getting rid of note-taking, things like that, because they wanted it to go all online. I get the desire for that because you just spend a lot of money on these computers, but not every kid takes notes the same way. So let's stop forcing them to fit into the box. This should be opening opportunities, not narrowing opportunities for student learning. And if students do better with handwritten notes, let them do it. And if students do better with typewritten notes, let them do it. That it works for them. The goal is for them to learn. Let them do what they need to do to learn. And I would say that we would do the same thing with books that we're asking kids to read. Don't force them to read online. My son loves to read. He likes having the book in his hand, and that's That's what's comfortable for him. He doesn't like the digital books. He uses them on occasion, but he doesn't like it. He would much rather have that. Maybe the one exception to that rule is the textbook, because the textbooks have a lot of video that's been incorporated in there. The textbook companies have done a very good job of linking to different websites, creating video content that's built right in, doing interactive quizzes right through the textbook. Textbook companies are getting really good at this. That might be the one area where you really need to push the digital angle. But again, for the most part, we want to give students that flexibility in the instruction. Misconception number 2. Students and teachers are already proficient with technology. Years ago, I started doing digital classroom stuff probably about 5 years ago, sporadically. One of the earliest videos that I ever did was, are students really tech savvy? And I make the assertion that they are not. They are good with their phones. They are pretty good with tablets. They don't know anything, for the most part, about computers. Across the board, they are very technology illiterate. And they are certainly computer illiterate. There are some students that are very proficient and they know what they're doing. But for the most part, this is where we get a lot of breakdown. I think what we need to do is try to figure out what type of training we want to have for our students and work towards creating those. In your classrooms, you might even have to do some of this where you're training them. Okay, here's how I want you to format my paper, and walk them through the steps of formatting. Here's how I want you to set up a PowerPoint, and walk them through the steps of setting up a PowerPoint. Here's how we use this technology. You might have to do that as a classroom teacher. I think students should be forced to take at the very least, a keyboarding class so they know how to type, but I think they should be taking software skills class. For the most part, I think they should be doing it, honestly, just because I think it will help them learn to adapt to new technology. When you have to troubleshoot and you have to problem solve, you learn how to learn. You learn how to engage and interact with software, so that the next time you change programs, you can start to look and go, wait a second, okay, I think this makes sense. Let me try this. And they'll look for solutions rather than just giving up at the first sign of adversity. Now, for teachers, where do I begin? Teachers run such a wide spectrum of computer proficiency that there almost needs to be a full level of training for teachers. I would love to say that at the beginning of all this, we should give teachers a full year with computers, going through trainings and teaching them software, teaching them the learning management system, those kinds of things. Obviously, that is not possible. We are beyond that point. So now we're looking at crash courses in this stuff. Teachers need to learn how they're going to use this technology. But just because you can use it doesn't mean that you're going to be good at teaching it. So we also are going to have to look at, okay, how would you demonstrate this for your students? How are we going to do this so that we get that side of this as well? The other part that goes into computer proficiency or technology proficiency is knowing what's available to you. So what tools are out there? And as we've gone through this pandemic, more and more and more companies are trying to find technology opportunities for the classroom. How can we give the teachers more tools for their lessons, for their instruction? But you got to know what they are. You got to know how to find them. And then you got to know how you're going to incorporate that. And that's not an easy task for teachers. When you're teaching full time, you've got a load of 7 classes or 6 classes, whatever that might be. You've got grading, you've got planning to do. Where do you find time to have teachers researching technology tools and learning how to use those technology tools? There's only so many hours in the day, and they have personal lives too. So it's definitely something that there needs to be somebody who's curating all of this and finding the best method of getting that information to the teachers and preparing them for using this in the classroom. So proficiency in the classroom, or proficiency with technology, is a big challenge and a big obstacle in the digital instruction environment. Misconception number 3, teaching with technology is easier than traditional teaching. We're not exactly starting from scratch when it comes to teaching with technology. I've often compared it to being in your first year of teaching, where you're relearning everything. You're a day or two ahead of the kids. You're just trying to stay above water just long enough so that you can fake it in the classroom, so that you can fool the students into thinking that hey, you're right on top of this. That's pretty close. But again, with a little bit of planning and forethought in this, there's ways to make this a lot easier for teachers. And I have a 3-step system for teachers to incorporate this. Even if you've already been thrown into the deep end, these are some things that you can be doing to make this a little bit easier. Step 1, just start digitizing your current work. What I mean by that is take whatever you've had on paper and pencil, that whatever you've been handing out to the students, let's make it electronic. Put it on the computer so that the students have to go access it. Not adapted in any way. We're just putting it on the platform, whether that's Google Classroom, whether it's Edmodo if you're still using that, whether it's Schoology, Canvas, whatever it is. Take whatever you've been doing and just make the students go get it on the computer. That's step 1. Step 2, start adapting your current work to become digital. So look at the output that you're asking for and start adapting to figure out, how can I make technology a part of this? How can I have the students demonstrate a technical skill while still getting across the point that I want to get across? What can I take, instead of making it a paper, how can I make the kids do an infographic? Do not try to do this with every assignment at the same time. You will get frustrated and you will want to give up because it's a lot of work. Start with your notes and start adapting those to become more digital. Pre-record lessons, add hyperlinks into your lessons that will take the kids to other places. Use different tools to track student progress in your lessons. Edpuzzle is a great one for doing that if that's something that you want to use. Microsoft Forms is another one that you can use for that. Just focus on just your notes. Then focus on maybe your projects for class. Okay, what can we do differently with digital there? How can we incorporate technology into this? And then focus on daily assignments. And say, okay, how can I adjust this? How can I adapt this? How can I adapt this? Take your time with that. That might take a couple of years to fully get in place. And again, I know we're already in the deep end. I get it. But this isn't changing anytime soon. So let's make the best of what we have, and let's find the opportunities for us to make this right and do it the correct way. Step 3, add new options to your classroom, whether that's assignments, whether that is reviews, whether it is notes, whatever it is. Add something new to your curriculum that's strictly digital, and find those opportunities for students to turn something in a little bit different manner. Find where you can change the assignment altogether and say, I'm going to make this fully digital. I do a lot of pricing math with my students, and I used to do those on paper, and that's hard to do now. I'm not going to collect papers from kids. So how do you put those into a format that's digital? I put them into a quiz grader, and I tell the kids it's in the format of a quiz, but it's not a quiz. It's just so that it can be graded automatically. Then I don't have to do the work. You know, I do the setup, and then it's good year after year after year after year. And that took me several years to get to that point where I started putting all of my math worksheets into this format so that the kids get instant feedback and I don't have to do all of the grading on that. So that's a new option. And then repeat steps 2 and 3 as necessary. Just keep adding new stuff and changing, periodically to make sure that you're keeping up with the latest technology. Misconception number 4 is that technology limits social interaction. And I am going to disagree with this 100%. I think it opens interaction opportunities. The ability for students to collaborate and communicate through technology is growing. And if we haven't seen that through this process of using web conferencing, Zoom and Teams and WebEx and programs like that, then you're missing out on a huge opportunity here. When you're in college and you have a group project coming up, it's real easy for kids to say, hey, look, when can we all get together? When can we meet at the library? And you find time in your day. Hey, I don't have a class until 2 o'clock, so I can meet at 11 and we'll meet until 1, or I can meet at 1 until 2:30, whatever it is. I can meet at 12 until 1:30, whatever that is. College kids find a way to make that work. Or for you can call on the phone and do some of that stuff as well. But meeting face to face helps a lot of that communication. So college kids have it pretty easy in that regard. But even they understand that, you know what, I got to work tonight. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. I'm going to be home at 10. If you guys want to meet at 10 o'clock, we can collaborate on Zoom. And they'll set up a Zoom meeting for 10 o'clock because they have the opportunity at that time to do it. That's when everybody can meet. Great. Why can't high school kids do the same thing? They have access to Zoom and WebEx and Microsoft Teams. They can set up appointments and they can set up meetings and meet. Hey, guys, we're all going to meet on Saturday at 10 a.m. We're going to meet for 1 hour to talk about the project. Everybody logs in. Now we don't have to worry about that this kid doesn't live in the same neighborhood as this kid. And when you live in a larger school district, these kids get really spread out. I teach in Orlando. These kids are spread out all over the place. They can't all get together at the library. They don't all have transportation. They don't all have access to that. Some of them have other obligations at home. They've got to watch little brothers and sisters. They've got to take care of this. They got to take care of that. But if you can log in for an hour while they're, taking care of other things and they can interact with the group, that's a great tool. There's a lot of opportunity here for students to take on some of this responsibility and prepare them for college. It is going to require training on teaching the kids how to do this, though. How can you make this work? And of course, there's always going to be exceptions where kids can't meet. They're in high school. We know that. But if we can get them thinking in those terms, I think you're going to like the results that you see with your students and being able to do that. Misconception number 5. Technology increases student distractions. I'm not going to say it's not a distraction. It is at times. But students have always been distracted because they're teenagers. They're easily distracted. I know I used to stare out the window at whatever was out there during class. I know that I used to doodle in my notebooks on occasion. All right. And I'm pretty sure that every once in a while there was a girl in class who caught my attention that made it really hard for me to listen to what the teacher was talking about. These things happen. Kids are distracted by all kinds of stuff. So our job is to find ways to engage those students and limit those distractions. You can't stop them from being on YouTube, but when you notice it, you just go over and correct the behavior. It's the same thing that we would do if we saw them, playing on their phone, if we saw them not paying attention, if we saw them putting their heads down trying to take a nap. We would go over and say, hey, Let's go. Stay focused with me here. You know, it's our job to correct that behavior, whether it's digital or otherwise. The distraction isn't any more complex. There's not more of them. It's just a different type of distraction. So use that to the best of your ability. I use it a lot of times to kind of build relationships with the kids. I know that seems weird, but I'll ask, hey, what are you watching? You know? All right, hey, look, I think that's really cool, but let's put that aside for right now. Let's focus on this, and then if there's time, you can get back into that, you know, after class, at lunchtime. You know, you can get into that some other time. They understand. They know what the job is. They get it. So find ways to bring that distraction back into your focus. You know, it's not, the kids aren't going to stop trying to watch YouTube. They're not going to stop playing games. We're just going to have to do the best that we can to connect with them and avoid that distraction. The other distraction that I see with students a lot is the headphone distraction. And this is a boundaries issue here. It's a rules issue. When you start class, you got to let the kids know, here's what the policy is. And I'm pretty flexible with this. I let the kids know if I'm instructing, if I'm chatting, if I'm talking with students, the headphones are out. Don't tell me that you're not listening to anything. It doesn't matter. It's a respect thing. I don't put headphones in, or I don't put headphones on when I'm talking to you or you're talking to me. You're not going to do the same back. And they get that. They understand. But I also tell them that once I'm done, if we're working on an assignment, if you've got something that you've got to focus on, some kids focus better with headphones in. They like having that distraction to block out outside noise. Some kids need it. So be flexible with it. As long as I can't hear the music and it's not distracting others around them, why do I care if that's what's helping them focus on getting my work done? You know, if I want their attention, if I've got a question that I want to ask them, I'll just go over and get their attention and use that to keep these kids focused and be able to give them a little bit of freedom with this. Every kid learns a little bit differently. So the technology aspect of this should be opening flexibility, not restricting that flexibility. Let's make sure that what we're doing is in the best interest of each individual student and how we can get them to learn best in our classrooms. It's a challenge, there's no question, but it is something that definitely can be done. So for the next several weeks, we're going to be talking about blended learning in here, and I'm going to be looking at different strategies for incorporating technology into class, things that we need to be looking at, things that we need to be doing. I think there's a lot of opportunities for that, and that's going to be the focus. And then as we go through the year, I've got other topics that we'll be bringing into. I want to thank you for joining me in the digital classroom today. If you liked this episode, make sure that you have liked and followed the Facebook page at the Digital Classroom. Also, make sure that you hit subscribe on my YouTube channel so that you don't miss any great digital classroom content, and share this episode with your friends. I'm Jamie Benedict for the Digital Classroom, and until next time, class is dismissed.